Good morning, afternoon, evening, who knows during this pandemic. And welcome to the Worldview Bros. My name is Sal, and this is my brother Jim, a.k.a. Slippin' Jimmy, a.k.a. Jimmy Cocoa Puff, a.k.a. Brogo Baggins, a.k.a. Butterbeard, a.k.a. The Educanator, a.k.a. Discount Shapiro. Jim, how you doing?
Hey, man, I'm doing great. Thank you for getting all my titles. You mentioned Slipping Jimmy. That is living up to my name these days.
Yeah.
You know, I'm usually like a very cautious individual. Like I've never broken a bone in my body or anything like that. But every now and then, just kind of do something really stupid. You know, like those big blue ice, like huge ice block things that you'd put in your
your freezer, like,
well,
like
your
the
freezer
old times or something, like
no, like to keep your stuff cold in the cooler. The ice pack, yeah.
A big old,
yeah.
Okay,
so
yeah.
I had that freaking thing fall on my foot, like the little corner of it. It's like from a height, I don't know, what shall we say, from the top of my freezer, dude? Like 5 feet, right? Just, like spinny, smack the corner. So I don't know if my toe is broken, but I haven't gone to the doctor.
Wow.
Do you think I should?
I don't know. I guess I'd have to see your foot, but I don't
don't
really want to see your foot.
You really don't.
Wow.
You don't.
Okay.
So
well, on that note, again, welcome to the Worldview Bros, and today is a historic day. Kind of dramatic, right? Historic day for the Worldview Bros. We have our very first special guest. Is a good friend of mine, one of my best friends, one of my best friends, honestly. He is probably the biggest Mavs fan outside of myself, I would say.
Oh my
that
gosh.
I know.
Dang.
That's right. I talk about the Mavs a lot on here. Probably the biggest Dallas sports fan I know, for sure. And just a really solid family dude, great guy, Dylan Duell. How you doing?
Wow, what an introduction. It's a lot of pressure to put on me for the remainder of this. But yeah. I'm honored to be here. I'm honored to be the first special guest, for sure.
Yeah, good to have you. And today, for this special, episode, we are talking about really, really deep stuff here. We're talking about the Pixar movies.
Something that every grown man should discuss.
Exactly.
I mean, I figure like there are a lot of rankings for Pixar movies out there, but I mean we have to make it our own.
Yeah,
we have to do it Worldview Bro style.
Oh, definitely.
So
exactly. So actually, the reason why this kind of came up and why we wanted to do this was one fine morning I woke up and I was checking Twitter, which I don't often do. But every now and then I do, and I like to follow my good friend here, Dylan, and he tweets a lot, And actually, but before I kind of talk about it, Dylan, why don't you tell us about yourself a little bit?
Like you said, we're good friends. Been friends for a long time. I think we first met when we were in choir together in high school. Sal was a good friend to me back then when I was awkward. And I appreciate all the good times we've had, for sure. And then I've also known Jim for a pretty long time too, because you can't know Sal without knowing his family.
Yeah.
So, and that's great because there's a lot of them, but they're all great people, all super friendly and welcoming. It's easy to consider them like a secondary family, So I'm definitely happy to be here with you guys. I'm pretty similar to Sal, similar age, married with kids, big sports fan, like you said. Love talking about movies.
Right, a little bit about sports, no big deal.
Yeah. I'm an editor for a website named Dallas Sports Fanatic, and he mentions me being a huge sports fan. It becomes a little bit tougher to think of yourself as like a fan. I'm able to have a credential to Mavericks games, and I've been to Rangers games as well and other sporting events locally. And you can't cheer, when you're there.
So now it's your job.
Right. Yeah, a job that I don't get paid very much for at all, but that's beside the point. But it's interesting, it's kind of like seeing how the sausage is made. You know, you get to see these athletes that just dominate on the court, and then you know you become the person they don't want to talk to whenever you're in the locker room or whatever. You're the guy that everybody wants to avoid or whatever. But some of them are really cool. Some of them are kind of jerks, and there's plenty of guys that are just normal.
Yeah,
you know?
I'm sure it's hard as like a hardcore like basketball fan or just sports fan, because especially with because you get it like with these guys who are probably just like, oh man, like they're just media all the time, so
it's just a lot of people ask the same dumb questions every single time.
So I'm sure if like you're a good guy, right? I'm sure it's probably hard when you're like, oh man, like you're a huge fan of this person, but then they don't want anything to do with you.
Yeah. And I understand. I'm not the super I don't know. I don't try to force myself onto them or anything. Right. There'll just be real pop a question in here every once in a while. Or I will say one guy that I talked to comfortably was somebody like Ryan Brokoff. So you know him.
Oh yeah.
Super laid back, kind of end of bench guy. But he's super friendly, and I was bummed out.
Sad to see him go. Yeah,
sad to see him go. But
he just got picked up too
by Philadelphia.
By Philly.
I'm not really sure who this person is.
Yeah, he's a sharpshooting Australian.
Okay. For what team? Oh, for the Mavs?
He was for the Mavs.
Aussie, not Kiwi. Kiwi is the New Zealanders, right? Is that right?
So, yeah.
Kiwi.
Aussies are Australians. Yeah.
But yeah, like I said, I have kids like Sal. So, and I don't know, Sal and I grew up. We're the same age, so we grew up with Pixar's rise to dominance. So it's a huge deal for us.
Man, yeah, I'm a little bit older than you guys, but still, I remember when Toy Story first came out and how that really changed the world in many ways.
Yeah,
this movie.
We see every kid's movie is computer animated now. I can't imagine how different that must have seemed at the time.
I know. Can I say something about that? Like sometimes I do have kind of like a hankering for like the old style drawn animation films. I don't know. There's or maybe that's just romanticizing the past, I guess.
Yeah.
Well, there's more to the movie than just the animation, obviously.
But, definitely.
But yeah, and of course with Toy Story, it was good enough that it was able to. I'm getting ahead of myself, but it was a great movie to cross that bridge. Yeah. Because they start off with their first movie and they do a freaking great job of it.
Yeah,
so
totally.
you kind of forget that it's computer animated.
Yeah. So I think one of the big reasons why we decided to do this is because of your tweet, Dylan, and you decided to rank these Pixar movies and kind of talk. You talked a little bit about them, what you thought about them, and I thought it was cool. So we've actually been wanting to do this for a little while, and so the way it worked, the way that Dylan did this was he made his. Obviously, there's the master list of like what he thought was the best Pixar movie to the worst, which we all have. And I think we'll kind of share those at the end, because then the way he ranked them was there's a couple categories. Now those categories were first one was the movie, is it funny? Is it quotable? The next one was is the movie creative? The next one original story, which some of these, Dylan, I feel like we kind of, Jim and I, I know we were texting back and forth like, what were you thinking when you're doing this? And original story, I think, has kind of tied with creativity. So the next thing is, like I said, original story, and that's kind of like, I don't know. Do you want to explain a little bit of what you were thinking when
I said creative? I was thinking like, is there like a look to this movie, or I guess. Yeah, is there like a specific look to the movie that is like, oh, this is this movie that's singular to that, and are the characters, they're not more separate from the story? Are the characters like Woody is Woody, Woody is not just a copycat of some other character.
I see, yeah.
And then there's the plot, is it its own specific kind of special plot, original story,
right?
That is not just a copy of
something else.
Work,
yeah,
just
exactly.
dressed up differently.
Yeah, no, Jim, you kind of were thinking original story. Your thought process was kind of
kind of like that, really.
Kind of the same, yeah.
Uh-huh.
And
is the plot original compared to tropes? Sometimes you see certain tropes in many movies, like certain kind of plots get rehashed a lot.
Exactly. Yeah. Which we'll get into with some of these.
Even if it's a plot that's been told many times, it could have many creative elements.
Yeah. So the next category then is was it touching? Did it make you cry at some point?
Do you care about these characters?
Yeah.
Emotionally?
Did it pull on the heartstrings?
That's the Pixar specialization.
Right.
Oh, totally.
Because it could be like. There's Pixar and then there's Despicable Me.
Right.
Mm-hmm. Not even Despicable Me. I'd say the Minions specifically. Because Despicable Me has some touching elements with Gru as a dad
adopting those kids,
these girls.
The girls,
and the Minions just run around with their butt cheeks out and they hit each other and stuff.
Dude, Claudia with a Chance of Meatballs.
Oh, it's a great movie. Yeah, I would love to do like an episode on like Pixar movies versus DreamWorks movies and stuff like that. Yeah.
Very different.
So different, yeah. Which some of them will come up because with the next category, and I'm interested to see what your thought process was on this, Dylan, because the next category, the final one, is animation. So I recently watched a video, not preparing for this or anything, but I was watching the progression of the animation of Toy Story, and I watched this video,
It's like a 10-minute video.
Yeah, and it talks about the animation of all. So some of my ratings on this animation are basically based off of the progression of Pixar, but then also compared to movies that were coming out that year as well.
Yeah.
So for instance, there's some years, in
it might be easy to just say that the original Toy Story, 1995, was the worst animated of all these, but it might not.
But it was, but I gave it a 10 because it was
groundbreaking.
It was groundbreaking. It was incredible, But compared to Toy Story 4, it's like really crappy. You know?
Yeah.
So anyways, those are the 5 categories that we're going to go over, and then those are out of from 1 to 10. What do we rate it? And then come up with a total, and that's how we came up with our master list of what we think is the best to the worst Pixar movies. So let's get into it. We're just going to go over each one. We're going to start at Toy Story and at Onward, and we won't spend too much time on every single one, but here we go. So the first one, 1995, Pixar released Toy Story.
Dude, just to right off the bat, like I was looking at the date on that again. It's like, it's mind-boggling, dude. 1995.
A quarter of a century ago.
Gosh.
Yeah. So, I guess to put things in perspective, some of the movies that came out in 1995 with Toy Story, I have so many Windows. Yeah, Pocahontas is one of them.
Oh my gosh.
I have so many of these pages open on here.
Dude, that was a hell of a year for Pocahontas to come out because Pocahontas was kind of bad for the drawing standards.
Disney Renaissance standard, gosh.
Yeah. So the Goofy movie came out that year. Pocahontas,
underrated.
Balto. I mean, these are good movies, but compared to Toy Story, I mean,
Toy Story is towering.
It's crazy. It was really, really awesome. There's a couple random Dragon Ball Z movies that came out. But the big ones, Toy Story, Goofy movie, Balto, Pocahontas.
Right. Oh wow, that is interesting to look at that comparison.
Oh, and then one of the Land Before Time movies came out that year too. I don't know. To me, what strikes you the most for Toy Story, Dylan?
I don't know, it just stands out. This was the first time that this Pixar animation studio had a feature-length film, and that I don't know. Obviously, they had a big supporting backing with Disney, And when I watched the credits at the beginning of the movie, it's fun to see names like Joss Whedon, who directed The Avengers. Wow. He was part of the screenplay, writing scripts, and then Steve Jobs was an executive producer on it, or something like that. Yeah. But yeah, to just strike gold on your first step into this, like they did. Yeah. But overall, like with the movie, you know, parts of it, it's like you look back on it now, it's pretty dark for a kids movie.
Yeah.
With Sid, but it's also hilarious too. It's a lot more kind of rude, mean humor. Yeah. The toys are kind of mean to each other. But yeah, I mean, I think it holds up really well. For sure.
Man, I have to say, I love having a little bit of darkness in a cartoon movie.
Yeah. I agree.
Even as a kid, like I don't know, I feel like you kind of get the gamut of the world a little bit when you watch a cartoon. And, I gave some of my comments before, so I won't monopolize here, but it's impressive that they come off with forget for a second about the animation, which obviously that's kind of like, from one perspective, that was the number one thing. Like, look at this freaking technology. Yeah. You know, freaking solid movie. Like, they're great at storytelling. Yeah. So that's what I value so much. Yeah. So
I think for me, the two highest scores on Toy Story for me was the creativity, just the way that they. The characters that they came up with, like, these aren't toys that just were out. It's not like they used action figures like G.I. Joe or whatever that was out. You know, they created these toys. You know, they created Buzz Lightyear. You know, and this kind of world, and the backstories are really cool. You know, and obviously, so the creativity was high for me. It was a 10. Yeah. And the
I gave myself some space. I gave it a 9, but I mean, of course, it's immensely creative.
And I gave I gave another 10 to the animation, just because, like we said, like compared to all these other movies that came out, the animation was just incredible. You know, you look at it now, you know, compared to other things, you know, like the dog is not that great. The dog is probably the worst thing. You know,
and you could tell that they were like terrified of animating people.
Yeah. Oh my gosh.
Yeah, that video that I talked about earlier, they talked about how like they didn't show a lot of faces in
just
a lot of
baby,
things.
Right? The baby, and the baby looks kind of scary.
Well, no, they also they show Andy at one point.
Oh, that's true.
Another thing,
Sid.
Yeah, it's funny to see like when you flash back to, or in the opening of Toy Story 4, which we'll get to later, there's a montage of Andy playing with the toys, and he just looks totally different from what he did in Toy Story 1.
Yeah, exactly.
But yeah, it's just funny to see mostly feet of people, you know, not actually their faces that much.
Yeah, and the thing with the Toy Story movies, and we'll talk about every time they come up, the openings are so classic. They're so good. Sure. You know, and there's actually some parallels. You know, the opening of Toy Story 1 is actually almost exactly, or at certain point, like they use some of the same
characters?
No. Lines
it's like this. It's Andy's quotes. Playing with the toys.
Yeah, but on Toy Story 3, you know how they are. It's like they're in the desert and they make it. It's all dramatic, right? But it's actually he's playing in his room. So some of the quotes are the script. Some of the script is the same. Like, for instance, there's a part where they mention Slinky with his force field or something like that, and then he says, "Oh, here's my dinosaur that eats giant force field dogs or something." Yeah. And he says that in the first one, and he says it again in the third one. Oh. So anyways, I know it's like a really small detail, but I thought the openings are really great. So, but
I'll say one last thing about it.
Yeah.
I think it would have been higher on my list. I think it's tied for 5th. Mm-hmm. It could have been higher. I gave it an 8 on original story because it is, like Jim mentioned, a trope, you know. It's like the Odd Couple, you know. 2 guys don't like each other, but guess what? We can get along.
Yeah,
you know?
No, that's true. That's true.
But they do a good job of all the story around that and creating the funny characters and the creativity of the world that they live in. Yeah. Yes. And like Buzz Lightyear could have just been a toy, you know, but like they created a background. They don't really focus much on like the Buzz Lightyear world in the movie.
Right.
But like he mentions what he sees, and then it becomes a big deal, like in Toy Story 2.
Yeah.
You mentioned the opening.
Gosh.
That Buzz Lightyear Zurg opening. That was really cool.
Yeah, I can't wait to get to it because, I mean, I would say for me, it's actually number 9 for me.
Okay.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that the other Toy Stories, the complexity of the story, it does become a lot richer in 2 and 3, actually.
Yeah.
But, it's also just kind of your intro into this world. And you just feel like this world, like if you could go into it, it could be a lot better. There's a lot of richness to it.
Yeah.
You immediately have a bond with all of these toys, which is really cool.
Totally. All right, let's move on.
Yep.
So in 1998, Pixar released A Bug's Life. I will say A Bug's Life is not super high in my list just because, gosh, Pixar just... Yeah, I mean, like, they're just incredible at making movies, and I have most of mine, like, if you look at my list, there's a ton of ties. So, like, my 2 through 5 is all tied, and my 6 through 11 is all tied.
Oh, dude.
So, like... It just was a matter of what I liked best when I redid it. Sure. So when I say that Toy Story was 9 for me, it's 9, but it's tied with like 6 other movies, Yeah. So A Bug's Life for me is kind of it was the first Pixar movie that like I think Toy Story, I made a connection and was like, I loved it later on because when it came out, I was only 2. But by the time in 98, I'm already like 6 years old, or wait, 5 years old, 6 years old. And like, I remember it coming out as a little kid and watching it. And I wish we would have actually put a category in about music. Yeah. Because, and that kind of tied into how I ranked them, because the score I think means a lot. And the opening like score or like the theme to A Bug's Life is really cool, like with the music. You
say that about Toy Story too, with Randy Newman, of course.
Exactly. Yeah, it's huge. I can't believe I didn't bring that up. But so it's not the best movie. It's not super original. The highest score I had on it was I kept the animation high because it was still better than a lot of the movies that came out.
There's no people in it.
Yeah, exactly.
To look bad.
But I thought it was funny. Like, there's a lot of funny parts to it.
It does have a few funny parts.
Yeah, so I won't monopolize too much time on it, but I thought the creativity standpoint was cool when you get into the city and stuff, and the way they use like different like trash as their city and stuff, and quotable things like "Who ordered the poo-poo platter?" I think it holds up like in the bottom half of the Pixar movies.
Yeah, I mean, this is what starts out to me on my list of like, this is like number 18 on my list, but that doesn't mean it's a bad movie. There's only a couple on here that you'd be like, oh, just totally pass on watching.
Yeah, it's 17 for me, so similar there.
It's pretty average across the board on my rankings, but that's not because it's a bad movie. It's just like in comparison to these others. But the lowest ones they got were on Creative Story or whatever, because this literally came out the exact same year as
a month later.
Yeah. Right, yeah, that's right.
Which is a bummer.
I feel like there's a lot of confusion about that. What?
One of my favorite lines from The Office is when Michael Scott's like, I'm a huge fan of Woody Allen, although I've only seen Ants. Like, would anybody recognize Ants as Woody Allen's crowning film achievement? But they're totally different movies as far as like darkness and things like that. But A Bug's Life it's pretty good. I enjoy it still. I watched it like the first weekend of quarantine life back in March. I remember we watched A Bug's Life on Disney Plus with the kids, and I don't know how much they enjoyed it, but with kids, like I'm sure Sal could tell, like they have those things that they've seen, that's what they like, and it's hard to pitch new things on them.
Exactly, yeah.
But I enjoy it still. I find it funny, like Sal said, the world that they created. It's a really good voice cast. Toy Story is really deep on that front too. But Kevin Spacey's a little bit of an now in 2020, but Hopper is a really good villain. He's scary.
It's Kevin Spacey?
Yeah, it's Kevin Spacey. Yeah. It's intimidating. It's a little bit scary with his messed up eye and stuff like that. But
he's a good villain.
Yeah, he's a villain in real life too, so he plays it pretty well.
Yeah, exactly.
But I mean, it's Nothing wrong with it. It's just solid, but it might pale a little bit in comparison to everything else.
Yeah, your thoughts, Jim?
Sure. I mean, look, it's a Pixar movie, right? Come on.
Yeah.
But I am like to go with some of the negative stuff for me. I just really am annoyed with the main character, Flick. That's his name. It's kind of annoying, man. I don't know. I don't really resonate.
This is going to
so
be. I already know your thought process. This annoyingness is going to be
a big factor.
A big factor for you.
Flick, the one thing that's annoying about him, he has like that one stock laugh that they use throughout the entire movie. He laughs the same way.
Yeah.
Just the same way.
I know
every
exactly
time.
what you're talking about.
Yeah. I give it a pretty relatively high score for creativity. I give it an 8. But for original, not so much. It's a cool story, but this is kind of a recycled story. It's a story that's been recycled a lot.
Outcast gets redeemed.
That's right. Yeah, it's actually I don't know if you guys have heard me talk about Seven Samurai by Akira Kurosawa. It's actually it's actually that same story, that you have this band that comes from outside of the city that's going to save the city. But they do put a spin on it, though, because this band of outcasts that come out don't actually have the strength to defend the city. So it becomes this sort of like teamwork to build this facade. That's pretty interesting. So I give it high creativity, but
totally.
And it has some funny stuff. The two roaches are like the most hilarious characters in that movie.
You mean the
roly-polies?
The roly-polies,
Okay.
yeah. Oh my gosh.
Tuck and Roll.
Yeah.
Are their names.
Yeah. Gosh, those are hilarious.
They're kind of like Minions before Minions. You know?
Yeah, exactly.
Because there's a lot of physical
And I guess
comedy
not as
between
cute.
them. Yeah, they speak like a foreign language and they slap each other. That's like Minions. You know?
Gosh. That's great. Some of the movies actually that came out during this time are Prince of Egypt, which is one of DreamWorks' best movies, I think.
Great, yeah.
Mulan came out. Ants, Quest for Camelot. So a lot of heavy hitters here. This is when you start getting some of the Pokemon movies coming out too. Great movie, Lion King 2, Simba's Pride, came out this year.
For a direct-to-video Disney sequel to Lion King 2 is fine.
Actually, you're right. Yeah.
How bad some of those can be.
Like Pocahontas 2, that came out the same year as well. That was terrible.
I don't think I saw.
And Beauty and the sequel to Beauty and the Beast. Like what the heck?
Wow.
Yeah, a lot of movies
that's
came out
just
this year.
milking time, Like Disney's like, okay, we put in the work, okay, so come on now, bring in the cash at this point.
You need something for your kids to watch. Just buy this video.
Exactly. So, I think that's enough on Bug's Life.
Sure.
Let's move on. And do you guys have any last thoughts? Really?
Probably enough for Bug's Life.
Yeah, I think so. Okay. So, Toy Story in 1999, Pixar released Toy Story 2. Why don't you start on this one, Jim?
Man, I would say Toy Story 2 is the funniest of all Pixar movies.
No
I'm
way.
gonna say that.
Are you serious?
Yeah, dude.
Funnier than 4?
It's well, I haven't seen 4.
Dude, 4 is so funny.
Okay, my bad. I'm an idiot.
Okay, no, I know this one's high for Dylan, so I know he's probably right on
I mean,
there with you.
for funny, quotable, I have it at a 10. Like, I mean, it's just, dude, gag after gag, and it's funny. And
I mean, this is my number 3, so I agree. And
this is my number 4 movie. And let me tell you, man, I think I was saying that with Toy Story, the story starts to get a little bit more complex, a little more meat on it. And I love this one because it's about Woody's identity, right? And it's like one thing they establish in Toy Story 1 is, hey, as toys, what's our duty? Our duty is to our kid Andy, to make him happy. Mm-hmm. I love that kind of philosophically here. The end is happiness. And so likewise in Toy Story 2, Woody has this decision, like, what is my identity? Is it with Andy? Or, look, here's this kind of pre-structured place where I'm supposed to fit in. Yeah. And I'm supposed to live that way because that's kind of like who I'm supposed to be. That's what I'm supposed to be. Right,
exactly.
But how does it actually play out in experience? How does it play out in actual happiness? Yeah. So, I think there's some
I think that's
cool
totally valid. That's really cool.
Okay.
Dylan, what are your thoughts on this?
I love this movie.
Yeah.
I think it's like tied for number 4 on my list, and pretty much my Toy Story takes up like spots like 4 through 7 on my list, and they're basically all tied.
Yeah.
And I just put this one on top. Just in my ranking system, I try to do like as little gut things as possible, which is I came up with the scoring system. But just to break ties, I just use my gut feeling, and this one is my favorite just as far as gut feeling, because it's just so good as far as being funny, and it's crazy how far the animation came in just 4 years since the first one.
Oh yeah, definitely.
And like we mentioned, that opening sequence with Buzz Lightyear in
so
space
good.
or whatever, it's really
You're just
cool.
like, what's happening?
Yeah,
and then all of a sudden, oh wow, I know what's happening here.
I have really fond memories of seeing this. It came out on Thanksgiving of 1999.
Yeah.
I remember seeing it in theaters with family. I remember seeing it a second time. They like re-released it with the outtakes at the end.
Oh yeah,
That wasn't originally there. Nice money grab to re-release it.
Yeah, totally.
In theaters, and it worked. But yeah, with the new characters, I thought they were all really good. Sometimes animated franchises just introduce characters as a bit, for maybe merchandising or whatever.
Exactly.
And I'm sure that was a possibility here because they're literally toys, so that makes it easy for selling stuff.
So smart.
Insane.
Yeah.
How much money they made with that?
They're all really great. Like the Jessie storyline with their old owner, that has an emotional punch that the first movie didn't have.
Right. So good.
And
that song.
Yeah.
Freaking Sarah McLachlan. Oh, jeez.
Yeah.
So good.
And then there's so many great scenes, like epic scenes, like where they're climbing the elevator, or the last airport scene, which is it's a little bit ridiculous, cool. But like let's just have fun and then marvel at the animation, And the score is really good. I always remember when Woody gets into the airplane to try to rescue Jessie. There's like this really good like violin little riff when he's like jumping across the luggage. It's just really good. But yeah, this was probably one of might have been my favorite movie for a little chunk of my childhood.
Yeah.
Like as far as once it came out in video and I could just go to my room and watch whatever movie I wanted, I probably watched this a ton.
Definitely. That's cool. Yeah. No, I feel like a lot of these movies, the way I was trying to, obviously thinking about when I watched them as a kid and then watching them now. And so as far as like, how I ranked these and how I felt about them. So I try to think of the past. I try to think now, and also just kind of the way Eli sees it, my son, and he loves these movies. So these are pretty fresh on my mind, Toy Story ones. And I gave it a 10 on the creativity side, and not just because, it's really creative. The beginnings are awesome. And then the idea that Rex is playing the video game, that's so cool. It's really cool to do, and you see Buzz die, get fried, and you're like, what? What's going on? It's exactly.
It's a video game over.
Yeah, and but here's the thing that is really awesome on the creativity thing, is that we talk about sequels and we talk about how terrible sequels can be, and I think Toy Story, even all the way to 4. They have done an incredible job at staying just really solid and really good.
Right? Pushing the envelope.
And I think Toy Story 2 was so important because they could have easily gone into this world or this idea of, okay, well, the sequel is going to be explaining how the toys come to life. And I think if they would have gone that route, which you could have easily thought you could have thought they would have done that, then it probably is not a good movie, honestly, because I feel like then it turns into this it's oh, there's this energy source that gives them that gives them life, and that just sounds like a bad idea, right? But no, they just went on, like you said, like it's just a really happy thing, and they kind of give the background on Woody's character a little bit more, and to even to a certain extent Buzz's with the beginning with Zurg and all that stuff. So. Yeah, I think overall this was just a really great animation. I stayed at a 9 there. Some of the movies that came out during this same year, 1999, are Tarzan, which Tarzan is my movie as a kid. Right. I watched this over and over and over again. So, but that animation is definitely better than Tarzan. Yeah, the animation in Toy Story 2 is definitely still better than Tarzan. The Iron Giant came out this year. Fantasia came out. Doug the movie came out. Not like
forgettable.
Yeah, not super huge. Pokemon 2000 was a really good movie that came out that year.
That's
classic.
Yeah,
best picture contender.
So, Inspector Gadget, even though that's not a animated film. So, Toy Story 2 is great. Any more thoughts on that from you guys?
No, dude, just like the Buzz Lightyear and Zurg, like the Darth Vader-Luke relationship.
Oh,
like,
that was so great. I can't believe I forgot to bring that up. Yeah.
I'm going to stay and play with my dad.
The whole, no.
Yeah, this was my favorite Pixar movie for a long time, guys.
It's really fun. I forget how funny it is.
Golden Age, that marginally have some movies going above this. But
yeah.
Great movie.
Man, okay, so let's move on to the next one. In 2001, Pixar released Monsters, Inc. Dylan, you want to start us on this one?
Yeah, so this one, I didn't watch it a ton after seeing it as a kid. I watched it, I saw it in theaters, and then I wasn't like, we need to get this DVD or VHS, whatever it was at that point, But I've revisited it on Disney Plus within the last few months, and then watched it on TV. And as a dad, it's better now, because the emotional story between Sully and Boo is really touching, and it's also a really fun, creative world that they've created again here. 2001 Billy Crystal John Goodman combo is a lot bigger deal than it is now.
Sure.
But that's pretty good right at the top.
Mm-hmm.
But it's pretty funny. Like some of the satire they do on the real world. Like I love the scene where they're talking to people on the news and the guy's acting like the kid picked it up and shook him like a dog. It's really funny. But I mean, this isn't anywhere near like my top 5 or anything. But again, that doesn't mean that it's a bad movie.
Right.
I like it more now than I did when I was a kid.
Yeah.
But it's
what number is it on your list?
Let's see.
It's number 10 for me, actually, right after Toy Story.
I have it as number 10, actually, yeah.
Oh, cool. Nice.
It's tied for number 10. But
okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, same here, I guess. What about you, Jim? What was it for you?
I have it as number 6.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it's
Why don't you talk about it?
It's a really strong movie for me. I think it's my wife's favorite. It's my wife's
interesting.
Movie.
I didn't know that.
I think this is the combo of Mike and Sully
is awesome.
Is really, really good. And so I think you get a lot of it's very touching, like their friendship, as well as for Sully and Boo.
Yeah.
And yeah, I mean, Crystal is just really just funny. I mean, these guys are just they knock it out of the park. But yeah, very creative, and in terms of animation and stuff like that, I mean, this is like where I'm really impressed, like just looking at like the fur of all the monsters. Like,
I was going to bring that up actually.
They couldn't have done Sully in 1995.
Like this was one of the huge accomplishments actually for the animation side, actually figuring out the fur. So it's funny you bring that up because it was like a goal of theirs, and it was like cool to see. Yeah. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
No. I mean, I was just going to say that. It feels a little bit on the sappy side for me sometimes. Like, I don't know, a little bit too much. But no, still, like, to me, my favorite thing about it is actually just the friendship of Mike and Sully. It's pretty great.
So for me, I think the two highest actually was the creativity and the story, and then animation because of the fur and stuff. But I mean, I think for me, like the scores were all like pretty solid. Like it was like 8, 9, 9, 8, 8.
Mm-hmm.
And creativity and story were the best for me. Were the highest 2 9s because the idea of taking monsters, that scare, and there's a scary part to them in this movie, and kind of turning them into characters that you want to see, like the word monster for a little kid. Yeah. Like that's a negative thing, but they turn it into a really cool thing. Like our nephew, so Sophia's kid Michael, he's scared of a lot of things. He's just really he gets scared easily. Mm-hmm. But he loves Monsters University. He loves that movie, and I think if you're watching that movie and it's not like the way Pixar portrays these monsters, little kids would see these monsters and be like, "Oh my gosh, that's really scary," you know. But like they make them really likable and relatable.
Monsters are actually like nice, fluffy, cool creatures.
So I think that's creative to do that.
You know?
Yeah,
It was a creative way for them to lay out the world. You know, this is just their job. You know, and that's how they power their world.
I can watch that movie multiple times. It's it's just pretty solid. I think the story's really good.
Now I forgot. The animation was great, but I think the reason why I gave it an 8 was because in 2001, some movies that came out. This is when Shrek came out. So this is when Shrek came out. This was the big movie for DreamWorks where they started to catch up on.
There's some competition.
Competition on the animation. Spirited Away came out, which is a great movie. Have y'all seen Spirited Away?
That's really good traditional animation.
Yeah, exactly. Mm-hmm. That's a great movie. I really liked it. Atlantis came out that year. I saw that in theaters. Jimmy Neutron came out that year. Some heavy hitters, I would say. You know, nothing really that stands out too much.
Yeah, I know Shrek is like a super famous movie, but I mean, I would put the quality of Monsters Inc. far superior to Shrek.
Yeah.
But I that's a question of taste too.
No, definitely. I would prefer to watch Monsters Inc. any day than Shrek. But you're right, it's just different. I will say Shrek the musical. The songs are actually pretty good in it, so check that out. Anyways, any last thoughts on Monsters Inc.?
No, I think.
All right, cool. So let's move on to in 2003, Pixar released Finding Nemo. Now, I actually want you. No, I'll start it. Why not? No. I want you to start it because I think it's higher on your list than it is on ours.
Okay, so where did I put this? I think I have it
Dylan.
as number 2.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay.
That's huge.
Yeah. So I'll break down the reasons why.
Okay.
I think I put the most thought into my little tiny review on this. I'll just read it. I said, this might be the funniest Pixar movie to me. I can quote it just as much as I would, major comedies like Anchorman or Dumb and Dumber. It's just crazy to me that this movie came out just 8 years after the first Toy Story because the animation and quality is just on another level. And again, part of that might be because it doesn't have to do with people, but there are people in this movie. There's a dentist, and that world is pretty well animated.
Yeah.
But it's just beautiful,
Betty.
really.
What's the name of the girl?
Darla is the name of the girl.
It's Darla.
Yeah, I mean, Ellen DeGeneres is just hilarious in this movie. And it's incredibly well written. Going to Jim's annoying factor, Nemo is a little bit annoying. He's a little bit of a whiny.
Or the dad.
Or thinks Marlin is.
Marlin
I
is
think
annoying.
it's Marlin. Yeah.
Well, Marlin's just like the straight man or whatever, who's just there to.
I think
bounce
Nemo's annoying actually. When
Nemo's
I think about
a little
it,
too whiny.
Yeah.
Marlin freaks out a lot, but the clownfish tell us a joke thing is hilarious. I love. There's so many Dory lines. Like when she's asleep, Sea Monkey's got my money. Careful with that hammer. Like why would a fish have a hammer? But
the shark part is great too.
Yeah. Oh, look, balloons.
There's a lot of great
party.
parts.
Yeah, there's tons of great lines.
Yeah, you forget about those. Yeah, for sure.
This is another movie I can remember seeing multiple times in the theater. Like, I think of my dad, he was a great sport. He always took us to see these movies, but I never think of him like loving any of them. But he loved this one enough. Like, he took us as kids to see it, and he must have loved it so much that, like, he told my mom about it later. Like, we got to go see this again.
Yeah.
So it stood out to him like that. But yeah, I mean, it's just funny. It doesn't, like, it's touching, but it never makes me, like, well up or anything.
Yeah.
But yeah, and I love the side story of the dentist office. Those characters are funny to me.
Right, yeah, totally.
And the creativity of, like, how they know all the dental terminology and things like that.
You get the dude
funny.
from Everybody
really
Loves Raymond. What's his name? The guy.
Brad Garrett. He's in a ton of Pixar movies.
Yeah, I didn't realize how many he's in until one of the videos I watched.
And it's a really good voice cast. There's Willem Dafoe and
Willem Dafoe,
Allison Janney is an actress I've come to really like over the years. I didn't really know who she was back then, but it's funny. Yeah, I love Finding Nemo, so I'll see to you guys as to why you don't like it as much.
Yeah. Hakalugi. What it was? One Hakalugi.
Enough with the shark bait. Shark bait. Ooh, ah.
Yeah, it is a really. It is a good movie. Like, I mean, honestly, I just really like some of. There's so many good movies in the Pixar franchise that I mean, it's hard to really rank how good these are, and it's number 12 for me. But when I think about how many are like are tied,
close,
it's
right?
like it's pretty close, you know.
Yeah.
But it's right after a huge chunk of ones that are all tied, and the highest things for me are the creativity and the story again, because Pixar has done such a good job at like what movies have come out about these things. Like, this is the first movie I can think of, I mean, that shows the world of the sea, and I think it is really funny.
The Little Mermaid, but
yeah. Sure. I forget about the Little Mermaid, but as far as like the fish being the main things, right. It's the mermaids and they're out in the world as well. But these fish are alive and they're really funny, and I think Dory is what really carries the funny part, the funniness to it. And there are a lot of parts that I guess I forget about that are really funny. Like, everyone talks. You hear every now and then, like, mine, right, the freaking seagulls,
True.
Yeah.
Like, it is a very, very quotable movie, and I have to agree with you on that. But I think, some of the best things are probably just the touching. I actually was kind of high on the touching part because, the idea of a son being lost and being reunited with his dad, is biblical, and it's just a beautiful... It's a beautiful thing to think about, a son being reunited with his dad, and his dad looking for him, doing anything and everything to look for him.
You think about the opening scene, and you think this is going to be a bummer of a movie.
Yeah.
It starts off with a wife being eaten by a shark and all but one baby being eaten and stuff like that.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And then again, like, I just think more about it, like the creative world of the school that he goes to.
Yeah.
The thought that went into that, the animation of the reef and everything like that.
Yeah.
It's really good.
Yeah, it is. Yeah. Jim?
Well, I mean, I really don't want to crap on y'all's parade. I mean, you guys know I'm kind of a contrarian in so many ways. And even, like, for me, sometimes I appreciate that we're using the categories. Sometimes I don't feel super comfortable in categories because there are certain ineffable things that I can't quite grasp. And for instance, this one suffers on my score on touching because, I don't know, it doesn't resonate a ton with me. I don't know why. I do think that some of the characters are a little grating. We've talked about some of the amazing voice actors that we have overall for Pixar.
Yeah.
I think that with Marlin, it's kind of a miss.
Yeah.
I think maybe with Nemo and Marlin. I don't know. Look, I'm going to tell you.
Who is that? Who does the voice?
Dory is amazing.
Albert Brooks is the voice of
Albert Brooks,
which is a legendary actor, but he's kind of just the straight man. He's got really nothing to offer. This is Dory's show. This is Ellen DeGeneres'
No, that's
show.
And I was just going to say, I mean, she is unbelievable.
Oh, gosh.
And so in terms of the funny, oh my gosh, a category.
Yeah.
In that category, well, I'm also going to put annoying in that category. It kind of offsets it a little bit. So don't get me wrong. I have it kind of high in terms of
the lower
the number for its total score.
Yeah.
But it ends up a lot lower than some of the others I have. Again, there's not a huge point differential between some of these.
Yeah.
But I recognize that it's one of the better Pixar movies. Like, I recognize that so many people love it. So I think a lot of it is just a problem with me, not with the movie.
Well, that's gonna come up with Cars, honestly, and I don't want to talk about it yet, but once we get to Cars, then I think that's gonna be a huge thing that we talk about. Some of the movies that came out in 2003. Let me just list some of these. Brother Bear came out that year. Kangaroo Jack, even though it's not really fully animated.
I've read something recently that movie was intended to be like a legitimate, like, mob adult movie.
Yeah.
And then they did test screenings and it just didn't work. So they just grasped onto that like 5-minute scene of there being a kangaroo that talks.
Yeah.
And built the entire marketing campaign around being a kids movie with a kangaroo that talked, and it ended up somewhat working.
Yeah, I remember watching it.
It made $120 million, and if they had tried to approach it as like a mob movie, it would have just been nothing.
Yeah,
wow.
terrible.
I barely remember that.
Yeah, no, I remember. I remember the scene of in the bathroom, and they're like, he's like talking about like money, and he's like, it's so green and so smells so good, and it sounds like he's talking about like poop or something, but he's talking about the money. That's like the one scene that sticks out to me.
It's an incredibly terrible movie, but it's got an interesting backstory to it.
Yeah. Sinbad came out that year.
Brad Pitt voice acting.
Yeah. That's a rare. Looney Tunes Back in Action came out that year. Not a whole lot of stuff. The Matrix movies, but those are not animated.
Beloved family films, The Matrix.
Is there a more vanilla actor than Brad Pitt?
He won an Oscar for basically like playing himself in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. But I loved it. Like, I would love to just hang out with Brad Pitt, just if he's just like that cool.
I'm not saying he's a bad actor. It's just
he's just kind of playing himself. You know, and it's not especially impressive, but he's a fun guy.
Yeah, totally.
Sorry, Sean.
No, you're good.
Another family film, Once Upon a Time in Hollywood.
Oh man, I did enjoy that a lot.
It was fun.